Maria never imagined her life would change so suddenly. At only 18, she believed she still had time to understand the world, to figure out who she was, and to learn what kind of life she wanted. But the moment her stepfather, Jonas, discovered that she was pregnant, every piece of her future shifted in a direction she never expected. Instead of kindness or support, she was met with cold eyes and sharp silence. Jonas had always been a strict man, but the disappointment on his face that morning felt heavier than anything Maria had ever carried. For days, he barely spoke to her. When he did, his voice was low, almost trembling with anger, worry, and fear of the town's judgment. The small frontier town they lived in was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone else's business. People talked, whispered, and judged quickly. Jonas had always been obsessed with reputation. He believed that what others thought of him was more important than anything else. So when Maria revealed her secret, he felt as though she had brought shame on his house. Maria did not argue. She felt tired, emotional, and overwhelmed. Sometimes, she cried quietly at night, wishing her mother were still alive. Her mother had been the only person who made the house feel warm. After her passing, Jonas had changed even more. He became harder, colder, and far more controlling. Maria did her best to stay out of trouble, to follow every rule, and to never give him a reason to be angry. But now, no matter what she said, Jonas's mind seemed frozen. One morning, just after sunrise, Jonas walked into her room with a firm expression. He told her to pack a small bag. His voice was calm, but Maria felt fear rising inside her. She asked where they were going, but he didn't answer directly. He simply said, "You can't stay here anymore." Those words broke her heart. She felt as if the world beneath her feet had shifted into emptiness. She packed slowly, folding and refolding clothes just to delay the moment. Her hands shook as she touched her small belongings, things her mother had left behind. Jonas waited outside, his jaw tight, his eyes never meeting hers. When she stepped out with the little bag, he turned, walked to the horse, and climbed on without a word. Maria quietly climbed behind him, holding the saddle instead of him because she didn't feel welcome enough to hold his waist. The ride out of town was silent, cold, and long. Maria kept her eyes down as they passed through the main road. She could feel the curious eyes of shopkeepers and townspeople, watching from porches or windows. The town faded behind them, replaced by quiet fields and dry stretches of wind-brushed grass. Maria wondered if she would ever see her home again, even though it had never felt like a warm place. Jonas did not say where they were going, but Maria noticed that the road grew rougher as they continued. Trees thickened around them, and the mountains became larger, towering above the landscape like dark guardians. The air grew cooler, sharper, and the sunlight seemed thinner under the tall pines. Maria started feeling nervous. She knew about the mountains. Everyone did. People said only loners, hunters, or rugged mountain men lived there. Men who chose isolation because they didn't want anything from civilization. She wondered why Jonas was heading in that direction. A heavy thought settled in her stomach, making her feel sick. He was taking her far away on purpose. He wasn't just sending her to another family member. He was sending her to someone completely outside society's sight. Hours passed. Her back ached from the long ride, and her hands were stiff from holding the saddle. Jonas finally slowed the horse as they reached a clearing near the base of a tall slope. There, hidden between trees, stood a small wooden cabin. Smoke rose gently from its chimney, meaning someone was home. The place looked lonely but peaceful, nothing like the frightening picture she had imagined of the mountains. Jonas climbed down first. Maria stayed on the horse, waiting, unsure if she had permission to move. Jonas walked to the cabin and knocked on the door. A moment later, it opened, revealing a tall, quiet man with rough clothes, a thick beard, and deep, thoughtful eyes. His name was Elias. Maria recognized him only from stories. He was the man the town called a mountain loner, someone who lived off the land and avoided people. Maria's heart started beating fast. Was Jonas leaving her with him? Why? What had she done to deserve such a punishment? The two men spoke in low voices. Maria couldn't hear the exact words, but she heard her name once. She saw Elias glance in her direction, his face unreadable. She looked down quickly, embarrassed and scared. Then Jonas walked toward her, took the small bag from her hands, and placed it on the ground beside the horse. He didn't explain anything. He didn't console her. He didn't even meet her eyes. He simply mumbled, "You'll stay here," then turned away. Maria felt her breath catch. "Please, don't leave me here," she whispered, but Jonas didn't stop. He climbed onto the horse as if he couldn't get away fast enough. She stepped forward, reaching out in desperation. But he pulled the reins sharply and rode off without even looking back. The sound of hooves faded into the forest until there was nothing left but silence. Maria stood frozen, the cold breeze brushing her hair. Her bag lay at her feet, lonely and small, like her heart. She felt abandoned, forgotten, and terrified. Her eyes filled with tears she tried hard to hold back. Elias did not move for a moment. He simply watched her quietly, giving her time to breathe. Finally, he stepped forward, not in a threatening way, but slowly, carefully, as if he did not want to scare her. "You can come inside," he said gently. His voice was deep, but calm. "It's cold out here." Maria hesitated. Her hands tightened around the straps of her dress, and she looked at the cabin, unsure if she should trust him. But she had no choice. Jonas was gone, and the wilderness around her felt endless. Elias picked up her bag and handed it to her. "You don't have to be afraid," he said softly. "No one will harm you here." Maria nodded faintly, then followed him inside. The cabin was small but warm. A fire crackled in the stone fireplace, filling the room with a comforting glow. There was a simple wooden table, a few chairs, a sturdy bed in the corner, and shelves filled with tools, jars, and handmade items. Elias motioned for her to sit near the fire. "You look cold. Warm yourself." Maria sat slowly, her body still trembling. Elias didn't crowd her. He stayed on the other side of the room, giving her space. The warmth of the fire began to calm her shivering. But her heart still beat unevenly. After a long moment, Elias spoke again. "I don't know why he brought you here." He didn't explain much. Maria lowered her eyes, embarrassed. She didn't want to talk about her situation yet. Not when everything still hurt. Elias noticed her discomfort and didn't press her with questions. "You don't have to tell me anything today," he added. "Just rest. I'll make something warm to eat." Maria watched him move around the small kitchen, his movements steady and careful. He wasn't harsh. He wasn't impatient. He wasn't anything like Jonas. He placed a bowl of hot soup in front of her. The smell alone made her realize how hungry she was. She began to eat slowly, unsure if she should thank him or stay quiet. But Elias nodded as if he already understood. When she finished, Elias offered her a small room with a simple bed. "You can sleep here. Tomorrow, we can talk. Only when you're ready," Maria whispered. "Thank you," her voice trembling. It was the first kindness she had received in a long time. She lay down that night, listening to the soft sound of the wind whispering through the trees outside. Far from the town, far from the judging eyes, far from her stepfather's cold disappointment, she finally felt something she hadn't felt in months, a small spark of safety. She still didn't know what her future held, or whether this mountain cabin would become a prison or a refuge. But one thing was certain. Elias was not the cruel stranger she feared. And for the first time since Jonas brought her here, Maria closed her eyes without crying. In the quiet night, with the warm fire glowing through the cracks under the door, She allowed herself a small, fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, her life wasn't ending at all. Perhaps it was changing. Perhaps something new, something unexpected, was beginning. Maria woke up the next morning with the soft light of dawn entering through the small window. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was. The bed felt warm, the air smelled of pine, and she heard quiet sounds outside: birds, wind, and something soft brushing against the ground. Then, the memories returned. The long ride, her stepfather's silence, the lonely cabin, and Elias's calm voice telling her she was safe. The weight of her situation returned as well. But she didn't feel as terrified as before. Something about the silence of the mountains, the warm fire from the night before, and Elias's respectful distance comforted her more than she expected. She sat up slowly, feeling the heaviness in her body that came with her pregnancy. She placed a hand on her stomach, breathing deeply. For the first time, she whispered to her unborn child, "We're still here. We'll be all right." It wasn't a promise she knew she could keep, but the words made her heart soften. When she stepped out of the small room, she found Elias already up, splitting wood outside. His movements were steady and strong, and the morning sun touched the edges of his hair. He noticed her standing at the doorway and paused, lowering the axe gently instead of dropping it. Maria appreciated that small detail. It showed he wasn't trying to startle or intimidate her. "Good morning," he said, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Hope you slept all right." Maria nodded, her voice soft. "I did. Thank you." Elias pointed to the pot hanging over the fire outside. "I made oatmeal. There's enough if you're hungry." His tone was simple, not forceful. She could tell he didn't want her to feel uncomfortable. She stepped slowly toward the pot, taking in the surroundings. The cabin was nestled between tall pines, and the air smelled fresh and cold. There were no neighbors, no roads, no gossiping voices, only nature and quiet space. It felt strange but calming. When she sat on the small bench near the fire, Elias handed her a wooden bowl. She thanked him again and began to eat. The warm food soothed her empty stomach, and the silence between them felt peaceful. He didn't watch her closely or ask questions. He simply went back to stacking wood a few feet away, giving her privacy while still keeping her company. After she finished eating, Maria stood, unsure of what she was expected to do. Elias shook his head. "Not today. You're new here. You should rest, look around, get used to the place." Maria hesitated. She had grown up in a strict home where resting was rare and helping was expected. Elias's kindness felt unusual, almost confusing, but she accepted it. She spent the morning walking around the cabin, learning the layout of the place, and discovering how peaceful the mountains could be. The trees swayed gently in the breeze. The sun moved slowly over the peaks, and small birds hopped near the cabin steps. Later, when Elias returned from gathering water from the stream, he found Maria staring at the forest with a mix of fear and curiosity. "You're safe here," he reassured quietly. "Animals stay away from the cabin, and I'm always nearby." Maria nodded, though she still felt nervous about the wilderness. She sat down on the steps, hugging herself for warmth. Elias sat a short distance from her, not too close. "If you ever feel scared, you can stay inside. The cabin's strong. Built it myself." "You built all of this?" she asked. "Every part," he replied. "Took a few years. I wanted a place where I could live quietly." Maria lowered her eyes. "I'm sorry I came here suddenly." Elias shook his head gently. "You didn't choose this." Those simple words hit her heart. For weeks, she felt like everything was her fault. Her stepfather's anger, the town's whispers, the decision to send her away. But Elias's words made her realize she wasn't to blame. She felt a sudden sting in her eyes, the beginning of tears she tried to blink away. Elias noticed and spoke softly. You don't have to explain anything. Not now. Not ever. Unless you want to. That kindness pulled one silent tear down her cheek. She turned her face slightly so he wouldn't see, but he already had. He pretended not to, giving her the privacy she needed. Over the next few days, Maria started adjusting to life in the cabin. She learned small tasks: how to keep the fire steady, how to pour water from the barrel without spilling, how to sweep the floor with a handmade broom. Elias didn't push her to do anything. He simply let her join him when she wished. One morning, she asked shyly, "Can I help with something today? I don't want to sit all the time." Elias smiled a little, a rare expression on his face. "All right. You can help sort the jars in the pantry. Just don't lift anything too heavy." Maria nodded, glad to be useful. She spent hours organizing dried herbs, beans, and grains. The small task made her feel a little more in control of her life. Elias watched from time to time, making sure she wasn't tiring herself. During the afternoons, Maria often sat near the door, while Elias worked outside. She watched him carve wood into tools or repair the shed. His quiet focus impressed her. He didn't seem like the wild, unpredictable man people in town warned about. He was gentle, steady, and thoughtful. Sometimes, when he noticed her watching him with curiosity, he offered small explanations. "This tool helps me dig roots," he would say. Or, "This is how I keep animals from getting into the food storage." She appreciated every piece of information. It made the mountain world seem less frightening. One late afternoon, Maria stepped too far into the woods while picking berries Elias had told her were safe. The forest was beautiful, but enormous, and she quickly grew unsure of her path. Her heart began to pound. She looked around, suddenly realizing she couldn't see the cabin. "Elias?" she called out softly. No response. She tried again, louder this time. Within minutes, she heard steady footsteps. Elias appeared from behind a cluster of tall trees, slightly out of breath but calm. "It's all right," he said, guiding her gently back. "The forest paths twist easy. Stay close to the clearing for now." Maria felt embarrassed. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to wander." "You didn't know," Elias said simply. "You will learn. The mountain teaches slowly." His calm voice eased her fear. They walked back together, and Maria realized something important. He cared about her safety. Not because he was forced to, not because he wanted anything in return, but because he simply didn't want her to be scared or alone. That night, the wind grew strong outside, shaking the cabin walls a little. Maria sat near the fire, pulling a blanket around her shoulders. Elias noticed her tense expression. "Storm will pass by morning," he said. "Nothing to worry about." Maria nodded but admitted, "I'm not used to nights like this." Elias stirred the fire gently. "You'll get used to them. The mountains sound loud, but they don't mean harm." There was a long silence before Maria spoke again. "My stepfather. He didn't say anything to me when he left. Not even goodbye." Elias looked into the fire. "Some people don't know how to show care. They act out of fear or pride, not kindness." Maria's eyes softened. "Is that why you live here? Away from people?" He nodded slowly. "I lost my family in an accident a long time ago. Couldn't stay around crowds, couldn't listen to questions or sympathy. So I came here, where there's peace." Maria listened carefully. She felt a quiet connection deepen between them. Not romantic, not confusing, but comforting. They were two people who had been pushed away from the world for different reasons. Yet somehow, they found themselves under the same roof, sharing the same quiet space. As days passed, Maria became more confident, walking around the cabin, helping with small chores, and talking a little more. She smiled more often. She no longer woke up with tears on her face. She still missed her old life sometimes, but she no longer felt trapped in sadness. One afternoon, she watched Elias teach her how to safely peel bark for kindling. His hands worked patiently, guiding without touching her directly. She respected his boundaries, and he respected hers. "You're learning fast," he said. Maria felt a small warmth in her chest. Praise was something she rarely heard before. The days grew fuller, gentler, and more hopeful. Maria no longer felt like a helpless visitor. She started feeling like someone who belonged somewhere, even if she was still figuring out what that meant. Every night, when she lay in the small bed, she felt the baby move gently, reminding her she wasn't alone. She whispered small promises into the quiet, dark promises of safety, strength, and hope. Elias's presence outside the door, the crackling fire, and the steady rhythm of mountain life brought a strange but comforting peace. And slowly, Maria realized something she never expected. This cabin, this quiet man, and this wilderness might not be her punishment. They might be her chance to start again. Maria's days in the mountains slowly took on a gentle rhythm. Each sunrise brought small moments of peace she never expected to find. She woke to the smell of burning pine, heard the soft crackle of the morning fire, and felt the cool mountain air on her skin. Elias was always awake before her, tending to chores or preparing something warm for breakfast. He never woke her early or demanded anything from her. Instead, he kept a steady routine that made the cabin feel safe. One morning, Maria woke with a slight ache in her back. The baby inside her was growing fast, reminding her that time was moving whether she felt ready or not. When she stepped into the main room, Elias glanced at her with concern. "You look tired today," he said. Maria gave a small smile. "Just a little sore. It happens." Elias nodded. "You should sit by the fire. I'll bring your breakfast there." Maria found herself warming at his quiet thoughtfulness. She sat down slowly, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. Elias prepared warm tea with mint leaves, something he said would help her relax. When he handed her the cup, his hands were careful, steady, and gentle. She murmured a soft thank you before sipping. He sat at the table nearby, repairing a wooden tool. The silence between them wasn't heavy or uncomfortable. It felt natural. Maria watched the fire dance while she sipped the tea, letting the warmth spread through her. After a while, Elias spoke. Maria nodded gratefully. She liked learning new things, and she enjoyed helping when she could. Feeling useful made her feel stronger, more connected to her new surroundings. Later that day, Elias taught her how to dry herbs properly. They sat outside in the sunlight, sorting through bundles of leaves and small flowers he had gathered earlier. Maria listened carefully as he explained which plants helped with fevers, which eased headaches, and which were good for calming the nerves. "You've learned a lot in a short time," Elias said, watching her work. Maria felt shy at the compliment. "You're a good teacher." His expression softened. "You're a good learner." The simple exchange made her heart swell. She hadn't heard such gentle praise in years. Her stepfather rarely acknowledged anything positive. And growing up, she often felt invisible. But here, Elias noticed her efforts. It made her feel like she had value, even when she didn't see it in herself. As the days passed, Maria slowly opened up about her past. She didn't share everything at once, but little pieces of her story slipped out during quiet moments. Sometimes, she spoke while they sorted firewood. Other times, her voice broke slightly as they cooked meals together. She told Elias how her stepfather had become distant after her mother died, how his temper grew sharper, how his expectations grew stricter. She described the emptiness she felt at home, the loneliness, and the fear of disappointing him. Elias never interrupted. He let her speak at her own pace. He also never judged her or asked for unnecessary details. One evening, when the sky had turned purple and the stars were just beginning to appear, Maria admitted something she had been afraid to say. "I don't think he ever saw me as his family," she whispered. "I think he only saw me as a responsibility he never wanted." Elias stared into the fire, his eyes thoughtful. "Some people don't know how to care for others," he said softly. That doesn't mean you were unworthy of care. Maria swallowed hard. Then why did he send me away? Why didn't he try to understand? We have to two of the morning. The servant mating 40 port and 7 day. Maria swallowed hard. Elias hesitated before answering. Fear can make people act selfishly. He was afraid of what others would think. Afraid of trouble. Afraid of anything that didn't fit his idea of control. He glanced at her gently. But his fear is not your fault. Those words struck her deeply. She blinked back tears but didn't look away this time. Instead, she let the warmth of the fire dry them slowly. As Maria healed emotionally, Elias also shared pieces of his own story. Late one night, as rain tapped softly on the cabin roof, he told her about the family he once had, a wife and a young daughter. He lost in an accident years ago. His voice was low, distant, carrying the weight of old wounds. I couldn't stay in the town after that, he said. Every corner reminded me of them. Every noise made me feel trapped. So I came here. The mountains were quiet. I could breathe again, without feeling like I was drowning in memories. Maria listened closely, her heart tightening with empathy. She realized that he, too, carried scars, emotional ones hidden beneath his calm exterior. I'm sorry, she whispered. Elias nodded, accepting her sympathy. Life doesn't always give second chances, he said. But it gives new paths. This place, it became mine. His eyes met hers briefly, and in that moment, Maria felt a connection. Two souls who had both been hurt, finding unexpected comfort in each other's presence. As time passed, Maria grew more confident moving around the cabin. She organized shelves, helped prepare meals, and learned how to make soft blankets by weaving wool he had stored. Elias always watched to make sure she didn't tire herself. If she looked even slightly exhausted, he gently told her to rest. One afternoon, while she was folding blankets, Maria felt a strong kick from the baby. It startled her, and she gasped, placing a hand on her stomach. Elias looked up immediately from where he was carving wood. Are you all right? He asked. Maria let out a shaky laugh. The baby kicked. Strongly. This time, Elias's expression softened with surprise and admiration. That's a good sign, he said gently. Means the little one's healthy. For the first time, Maria saw a faint smile from him. Not a quick one, but a real one. It warmed her, more than she expected. There were days when Maria struggled emotionally. Some mornings, she woke feeling heavy-hearted, remembering all she had lost. Other times, she worried about the future, how she would raise the baby, where they would live, and whether she could ever return to her old life. When she felt overwhelmed, Elias often recognized it without her saying a word. He would sit quietly with her, giving her space to cry if she needed to. Sometimes he shared peaceful stories about the mountain animals, foxes, deer, birds, to distract her. Other times, he made hot tea and sat nearby without speaking, offering comfort with his steady presence alone. One notable evening, Maria finally confessed something she had been holding inside for weeks. I thought my life was ending when Jonas left me here, she said slowly, staring at the glowing fire. But I don't feel that way anymore. End, I'm on a tea. End rework. Tree mine out. End rework. I thought my life was ending when Jonas. Elias looked at her with quiet curiosity. And how do you feel now? Maria took a breath. I feel safe. Elias didn't respond right away. He simply nodded with understanding. His eyes reflected the fire's light in a calm, warm way. You deserve safety, he said after a moment. And peace. Everyone does. The honesty in his tone made her heart settle. She realized Elias was not just offering her shelter. He was offering her understanding, space to heal, and a sense of belonging she hadn't known for a long time. One day, while gathering water from the stream together, Maria slipped slightly on a wet rock. Elias reacted quickly, steadying her by holding her arms carefully, not tightly, not possessively, but protectively. Maria felt a sudden rush of gratitude. She looked up at him, and he stepped back immediately, giving her space again. "Careful," he said quietly. "You matter. Don't take risks." His words echoed in her chest long after they returned to the cabin. As weeks turned into a steady routine, Maria began to appreciate the gentle bond forming between them. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't forced. It wasn't based on fear or control. It was built from kindness, shared pain, mutual respect, and a slow-growing trust that made the cabin feel like home. Maria started talking to her baby in quiet moments. She told stories of the forest, described the sound of the river, and spoke softly of her hopes. Sometimes, Elias overheard and smiled silently to himself. The storms that came through the mountains no longer frightened her. The loneliness no longer felt heavy. Elias's presence made everything feel balanced. And one night, as she watched the fire glow softly inside the cabin, Maria realized something powerful. Her past had hurt her deeply. But here, surrounded by trees, mountains, and one gentle man, her heart was finally learning how to heal. She wasn't alone in the world anymore. She had found peace in the most unexpected place. The final weeks of Maria's pregnancy were the most challenging and the most meaningful. Every morning, she woke with a mixture of excitement and fear. She moved slower now, her steps gentle and cautious. Her back ached more often, her feet felt heavier, and she tired faster. But she carried a quiet strength inside her that she never knew she had. And Elias was always close, never hovering, never controlling, just present in a way that made her feel supported. He had grown more attentive as her due date approached. He made sure she had soft blankets near her bed, warm food ready throughout the day, and clean water within reach. Whenever she tried to help with chores, he gently stopped her. "You've done enough," he would say. "Your only job now is to rest." Maria always smiled when he said that. She was not used to someone putting her comfort first. It made her feel valued. As she sat by the fire or walked slowly outside with his steady steps beside her, she often found herself thinking how fortunate she was to have ended up in a place that felt kinder than any she had known before. One evening, clouds rolled in quickly from the mountains, dark and heavy. A storm was coming. The wind began to howl around the cabin, shaking the shutters. Elias stepped outside to secure the firewood pile and make sure the roof covering was tight. Maria watched him from the doorway, worry flickering in her chest. "Be careful," she called out. He gave a small nod without turning. "I will. You stay inside, where it's warm." She closed the door and listened to the wind. The storm grew stronger, and rain beat hard against the wooden walls. Maria placed her hands on her belly, feeling the baby shift inside. She whispered softly, "Everything will be okay." When Elias finally came inside, soaked from the rain, Maria handed him a towel. He thanked her quietly and dried himself. They both sat near the fire, their faces lit by its warm glow. Outside, the storm raged, but inside, everything felt safe. Hours later, as the wind calmed, Maria felt a sharp pressure in her lower stomach. She froze. Then another wave came stronger. Her breath caught. She tried to stand, but had to grip the table for balance. Elias turned immediately. "Maria? What's wrong?" Her voice shook. I think it's time." His expression changed instantly, alert, serious, focused. He moved toward her with calm urgency. "I'll get everything ready," he said firmly. "Sit down." Slowly. Maria obeyed, breathing deeply through the building pain. Elias lit more lamps around the cabin to brighten the room, then gathered the blankets, hot water, and clean cloths he had prepared weeks ago. He had studied everything he could to help her. But he wasn't a midwife. He worried silently about doing something wrong. though he didn't let the worry show. Just as he was setting things in place, a knock echoed through the storm-quiet cabin. Both of them froze. No one ever visited this deep in the mountains. Elias stepped to the door carefully and opened it, revealing a familiar face. It was the traveling midwife who passed through the area once every few months. Elias blinked in surprise. "You picked an interesting night to visit." She smiled warmly, brushing rain from her shawl. "Storm slowed me down. But by the sound of it, I came at the perfect time. You're about to have a baby in this cabin, aren't you?" Maria almost cried from relief. She nodded quickly, and the midwife hurried to her side. "You're safe," the midwife said gently. "I've delivered many babies. Just breathe with me." The hours that followed were long, tiring, and full of emotion. Elias stayed nearby, keeping water warm, adjusting blankets, and doing anything the midwife asked. He didn't leave the cabin once. His face remained focused, but his heart raced with worry. Every sound Maria made tugged at him, but he trusted the midwife and stayed as calm as he could. Maria gripped the blanket tightly, sweat on her forehead, her breaths deep and shaky. But through it all, she stayed strong. She remembered all the nights she had cried alone, all the days she felt unwanted, and all the moments she feared she couldn't survive. But she was still here. She was still fighting. And she wasn't alone anymore. Finally, as dawn lit the sky and the storm faded, a soft cry filled the cabin. Maria's heart nearly burst. She covered her face, overwhelmed with relief and joy. The midwife wrapped the newborn in a warm cloth and placed the tiny bundle into Maria's arms. Tears streamed from Maria's eyes as she looked down at her child, a small, warm, perfect little life. "He's beautiful," Maria whispered, her voice trembling. "So beautiful." Elias stood nearby, his expression gentle, his eyes soft with emotion. He had seen many things in the mountains, but nothing touched him as deeply as the sight of Maria holding her child. The midwife smiled at him knowingly before quietly stepping outside to give them a moment. Maria looked up at Elias. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." He shook his head. "You did this. You were strong." She smiled faintly. "I wasn't alone." Elias lowered his gaze for a moment, hiding how much those words meant to him. He had lived in silence for so many years. Watching Maria find her courage within his home gave him a healing he didn't expect. After the midwife cleaned up and checked the baby again, she prepared to leave. Elias paid her with food and supplies, since money had no meaning this deep in the mountains. She wished Maria strength and offered advice, reminding her that recovery would take time. Maria thanked her with heartfelt gratitude. When the midwife finally disappeared down the trail, Maria lay resting in the bed, her newborn sleeping peacefully beside her. Elias sat outside the door, splitting kindling quietly so she wouldn't hear too much noise. But he checked on her often, making sure she had water, warmth, and comfort. Over the next few days, Maria regained her strength slowly. Elias helped with everything: cooking, cleaning, washing blankets, and rocking the baby gently whenever Maria needed rest. His movements were careful, his voice always soft. One night, as Maria fed the baby, she looked around the cabin, the fire glowing softly, the handmade shelves, the sturdy wooden table, the calm silence. Her heart felt full. "Elias," she said quietly. He looked at her from where he was mending a chair. "I've been thinking," she began. "I don't want to go back to the town. I don't want to return to a place where I was never welcomed." Elias set his tools down. He didn't interrupt. "This cabin, this mountain, this peace." She touched her baby's tiny hand. "I want to raise him where there is kindness, where there is safety, where no one looks at him, or me, with shame." Elias nodded slowly. "Then stay, as long as you wish." Maria felt tears fill her eyes, not from sadness, but from deep gratitude. "I would like that," she whispered. more than anything, and so, she stayed. The months that followed were full of warmth and quiet joy. Maria's strength returned fully. She learned how to carry the baby in a soft cloth while helping with small chores. She learned mountain skills she never thought she could master. Elias built a small cradle for the baby, carving every piece with care. Maria cried when she saw it, touched by his kindness. As the seasons changed, their lives blended into a peaceful rhythm, sharing meals, tending the garden, gathering wood, laughing gently at the baby's small expressions. They weren't just two people living in a cabin. They were a family shaped not by blood or obligation, but by compassion. Maria often stood at the doorway, holding her child, looking out at the mountains, the very place she thought would destroy her life. Instead, it had healed her. She whispered softly, "Thank you," to the wind, to fate, to whatever had brought her here. Because she knew now, with complete certainty, that being sent away had not been her end. It had been her beginning.